Joseph. Yes, sir. Welcome back, everybody. Ladies and gentlemen, my next guest tonight is a writer, producer, and anti-bullying activist. Please welcome to The Late Show, Monica Lewinsky. Hi, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you, too. Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. Now, most people got to know you originally because of the scandal of the late 90s.
Correct.
And for about a decade after that, you weren't really able to tell your own story. Mm-hmm. But then in 2014, you wrote a powerful personal essay in Vanity Fair, and you had a TED Talk. What was the name of the TED Talk again?
The Price of Shame.
The Price of Shame. And that got millions of views. And I'm just curious, how have things changed in your life since you started telling your own story about a decade ago?
Well, for starters, I would say that thankfully people stopped coming up to me saying, "No offense, do you know who you look like?" So that was a good starter.
Yes. Yes.
But it's been really extraordinary. I'm so grateful, not only just for me, but my family as well. So, in fact, my aunt and cousin are here tonight.
Oh, that's nice.
So, my whole family stood by me then, and it's just, I think I feel like I have more purpose now, and I tried so hard to move forward from '98 in so many different ways, and it just didn't seem to stick.
What has it been like to see the world change, especially with the rise of the Me Too movement, or the prominence of the Me Too movement, which already existed, but really came into the public mind in 2018?
Yeah, for me, it was such a personal experience because what I went through alone in many ways. And I think to see women come together for other women, even though the Me Too movement includes men as well, but to see these shifts in the culture that have really helped, I think, so many people.
Like, as opposed to 1998, what you went through in 1998, how do you think that would be different in 2025? If someone had that same experience, how do you think it would be different for them?
I think it would be...
Or if at all.
Yeah, I think it would be different in a number of ways. So, first of all, just the news cycle is shorter, but I think because of the Me Too movement, I think that we're more aware of power dynamics now. And, but what I'm not 100% sure of is, given I don't know the right way to say it, I think given certain political lanes that we live in now, I don't know if it were a young, charismatic, very popular Democratic president, if it would be as different as we think it would be. So
because
I'm not
it would be an opportunity for attack.
Yeah, I think so. So I don't know that we've seen as much of a shift in the political landscape now, but 100% different. And I think that women are supported more now, for sure.
Go back to what you said about. I'm curious about what you had to say about the news cycle, the speed of the news cycle, that it would just be wiped off the front page.
Yeah, well, I think, it's crazy to think about. In 1998, this was on the front page of the news for months. In fact, I think it was the first 10 days of the scandal, the Washington Post had, I think it was like 120 articles on what was happening. So 120 articles in 10 days on one subject.
And
right?
also this one story metastasized into so many different stories that were in no way related
Exactly.
to it.
So I think the news cycle is much shorter today, but what we also have is there's been such a proliferation of outlets now. So I think it's harder to avoid the news because we get bombarded by 8 bajillion different outlets, but the cycle's also shorter, right?
Well, since then, you've become an anti-bullying advocate. And I'm just curious
Thank you.
We have, like you're saying, there's been a change in the media. There's so many different outlets, and one of those outlets is social media.
Yes.
And that is something that that did not exist when we first got to know you. How do you think bullying has changed now in light of social media?
Well, if we start with the positive, the positive is that we now have a vernacular even for things like bullying, slut shaming, fat shaming, that those kinds of things. We didn't have names for that before. And I think with social media, we've been able to get out the message more to people who are being bullied or cyberbullied, that there are incredible organizations around the world. In the US, there's the Tyler Clementi Foundation, UK, the Diana Award, Project Rocket in Australia. So there's this, I think that people know their resources now, and I think it can help people feel less alone and that they're more likely to seek help, which is what's really important.
Would you like social media to have existed when you were going through this?
Am I allowed to swear? No.
You have a new podcast now called Reclaiming. Yeah. What does that word mean to you, and why did you want to name it that?
Well, the act of reclaiming is really about getting something back that was lost or taken from you. And so I had been thinking about the concept personally for a few years, and I had this, the Notes app on your phone, and keeping notes with ideas that came to me to use it personally. And then a little over a year ago, it just started to make more sense and feel more interesting to sort of widen the aperture and turn that lens onto other people, to have conversations with other people. And when you start to look at the world through the lens of reclaiming, you start to see there's so many different ways this theme is in our world, like big reclaimings or big reclamations, small reclamations, so.
Well, you've had some great guests, Olivia Munn, Alan Cumming. Do you have a white whale? Do you have like a guest you really want to have that you haven't gotten yet?
Oh, there's so many. I have a very long list. I think, if I aim really high, I would say Taylor Swift.
Get in line.
Yeah, exactly. I know. But but particularly for the podcast, because if you think about Taylor's versions, it's a reclamation, to sort of lose your music catalog and to figure out a way to get that back as your voice. So, right? Or
keeping the power.
Exactly.
Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Stephen. Thank you.
Her podcast, hold on.
Okay.
Her podcast is Reclaiming. It's Monica Lewinsky, everybody. We'll be right back.